Hey there, Scott Tipton here from BlastoffComics.com. Time for the fourth and final part of our talk with animation pro Tad Stones. This week, Tad talks about how comics influenced his own career in animation. Enjoy.
What's interesting now in comics is that a lot of the TV shows that are canceled or that never get made are coming to comics with the original creators, and they're saying, we don't have to worry about budget. We can blow things up. We can have people die and be brought back to life. We can have thousands of people on the Stampede on one page, and we see the big people.
Nobody asked the artist about that. Yeah, thousands of people.
Right.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
What's my page rate again?
Right. But they're coming to comics in droves, and I guess here's my opinion, but maybe it's time for Tad Stones to come to comics again and not worry about budget and do something new in the 22-page periodical format.
I definitely have ideas. I've done a couple of comics. During Hellboy Animated, I wrote one for Dark Horse, and then I wrote and drew one. Mike says, "Oh, you just have to draw this one." And it's that thing where I just hit myself because I always had things like I'm not working fast enough, and it's like, no, you should slow down and make sure each drawing looks really good. Then and then of course I wrote a Darkwing Duck short for Boom Comics, and the one thing, the guys who started Darkwing at Boom did, I think, a great job. They didn't do it like I would have in that they wrote it for the comic market, and I would have written for the same market I wrote the series for. And it really paid off for them. It was really popular. I just felt like the one thing that they missed was, and I said it was the heart of the show. We didn't sell the show without Goslin. And in their early stories, they split Goslin up from Darkwing and gave her little superhero costume of an archer, character, a quiver wing quack. And I said, you're missing it. You're missing what's the heart of Darkwing. So when I did my little 8-pager, instead of Darkwing Duck as a logo, is actually crossed out, and Goslin is written there. And it was a lot of fun. And I was pleased that fans caught on to that. Although I was totally too ambitious. In 8 pages, I decided to do a time travel villain, Chrono Duck. And I said, okay, the gimmick is like page 3 is going to be when Goslin jumps forward in time, and page 7 is going to be that exact same page, but now like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, it's like, wait, now everything means something different, except for I think 1 or 2 panels on it, which, if that's an idea for a 22 or 18-page story, it was very confusing, but I had a lot of people say, like, yeah, I was kind of confused, but the second time it was great. But people really appreciated it. They said, oh, that feels like the show, and they really appreciated that I had that fun. But I love the comic medium, how to lay out a page, panel by panel, the way the panels interact.
All the storyboard work you do is amazing.
Yeah, well, it's still a different thing, and that's why people tend to think of storyboards in comics, but what comics has that storyboard doesn't is, and it's not so true if you're reading digital comics and you're using the panel by panel feature as opposed to looking at a page. When you look at a comics page, there's an opportunity to tell a story, and again, Mike Mignola is a master of this, where the panels almost animate because of the relationship of the characters in them, even though more time has passed between panels, and that they're not literally animating. It's not like, oh, I'm going to draw them here and here and here.
Yeah.
It's telling a second story by the way the page is laid out. That suddenly he'll do like a bird with an empty word balloon, and it's like, oh, I get it, the birds have gone silent, and it's just a little inset square in a bigger panel kind of thing. It's like that stuff that's unique to the page. I'm not saying it's better than animation or movies. It's just different. That's the point. It's a different medium. That's why I read plenty of comics on my computer screen, but I like to see the page. Not everybody does it, but Neil Adams did a Dead Man story where, there was a famous one where he does a big fiery effect. And if you look at the fire, it actually, or smoke, it says, hey, a Jim Steranko effect. But he did one where the whole page made a giant face of Dead Man, but those separate panels were all totally different things. But again, he was playing with the medium of something like that, which again, you totally wouldn't get if you were just looking at panel and panel. And of course, the panels were like weird wedges and things like that. So
I can't thank you enough for going through the extraordinary history that you've been a part of and all the people who you've touched. I think a lot of people are going to find a lot of great information in this, certainly a lot of young animators and creators who are going to be hungry for the story behind it. I really appreciate you doing that. It's a wonderful thing to hear.
yeah, if you cut out a lot of those spaces in between, it might actually get down to a length that people would actually
Cut? What are you
sit
talking
through.
about? Editing?
Yeah.
I don't know what editing is.
Yeah.
But I do want to segue a little bit, since you brought up Neil Adams, to some of these comics that are in your collection and that we're selling on the site and in the store. Some of your collection, a little bit of some touchstones. Certainly, we have Neil Adams, a winner of the Academy Award for Best Comic.
Yes.
The 70s of DC and their response to what Marvel was doing in the sort of darker stories. Let's talk a little bit about each maybe a few of these, and say what were touchstones for you. What did you find from these stories that maybe affected you, or maybe even your work?
Well, I mean, we've touched on some of the crazy influence of just those DC covers and things that ended up in episodes. But as a comic reader, I happened to enter really at the opening days of Marvel.
Yeah.
It was 66 or 67. Steve Ditko was the Spider-Man guy. Nobody could draw Spider-Man except for Steve Ditko.
Right.
And when Kirby did it, it just looked silly. It just, you couldn't get it right. It was something weird and unique to that. And of course, as you understand more how Marvel was telling stories, with the Marvel style, it's like, what a great storyteller he was. And he was packing pages with 9-panel pages were not uncommon. The Watchmen page of the 9 grid.
Yeah.
Ditko would do that all the time, and you really felt like you had read something. You got your 12 cents worth, man.
But it's interesting because you're standing in front of the first issue of Blue Beetle.
Yeah, when he went, this was great when he left Marvel. He'd always worked with Charlton. I mean, just like when he did those old Marvel, Monsters Are Us, What Journey into Mystery and Tales of Suspense, with all these creepy, giant monsters,
Right.
Weird vowels put together, krakoom, or, fin fin foom, and he had done, plenty of that same type of work for Charlton. But when Charlton brought their line of heroes, he did Blue Beetle, and it really captured, in an entirely different character, it captured a lot of the fun of those early Spider-Man, and it was obviously why. It's like, well, Stan only did part of that, storytelling. The artists were really doing the storytelling too, and so the design was great on the character. It was clean. He still had weirdness, but he added in that Batman kind of elements. He had a flying beetle car and all that. But now I forget who actually wrote the original Blue Beetle, but again, at Charlton, perhaps the writers were carrying the load there. But I don't know that. He also developed the Question.
Well, yeah, this is the first appearance.
Yeah,
of the Question.
and they were both fantastic.
Who is the Question?
Yeah, and of course, Alan Moore later on revisited these guys with Rorschach and Owl.
Right.
That again, a lot of comics are cross-pollination. The idea that DC was able to sue and win to get Captain Marvel when there was the Flash and Whizzer and Johnny Quick. I mean, a lot of them were their own companies or companies they absorbed later on. But it's like, we need a fast guy. So every company had a fast guy. Green Arrow, Hawkeye. It was done throughout the history of comics. So actually, I kind of wonder, why did the lawsuits stop? It seems like once they had that precedent, why didn't they go and try to stop all these other things? Probably because the company didn't want to pay the lawyers to go through it. It was just put the comics out there. They're worthless. I got to see the start of Nova Comics. So I was in comics before it, but I wasn't saving them. I mean, I'd save up a pile. And I don't know, my mom must have thrown them away or they got tossed or something. It was like, hey, okay, whatever. But Marvel, that's when I started collecting and, and keeping track of numbers. And I actually wrote into Marvel for back issues and got a back issue of Avengers number 2, I think, for 35 cents, because that's how much it would cost to buy an issue. Now, that seems cheap, but again, I talked about collecting used to be about going to used bookstores, get them for a nickel. That's where I got this comic.
You got Avengers.
I got Avengers number 1 for a nickel, I got that one on Magnolia Boulevard, Salop's Bookshop, which is no longer there. But a lot of my early ones, like the early Hulks, that I have of Hulk, when Hulk was a solo book when he was created, I got right down the street here.
Oh, really?
There was a used bookstore, Cogdell's bookstore, just probably 4 blocks down from here, and they had a rack of comics there, and just I said, I gotta come back on Saturday, when I have money, because I was in a carpool, and it was just, that was the fun, again, to collect, not just. I mean, today, if you have enough money, you get to buy your dreams, your memories, which you've got here. Back then, I wouldn't have the money anyway, but it was the hunt that was the fun. And now the hunt still goes on, but it's through your computer and all that, and you're looking at, well, what's the added value of this one? Or I can get this one. It's not in great condition, but it completes my set. Or a talented artist has done an extra sketch, perhaps.
Well, let's touch on that, because one of the things that we are doing, ladies and gentlemen, is that for some of the bigger ticket books, and we have Avengers 1 and X-Men 1 and Daredevil 1, Tales of Suspense 39, Fantastic Four 1, Avengers number 4. I mean, a lot of these keystone books are here. Tad is going to include an original drawing that's going to come along with the book that you purchase. When you go on the site and come in the store, you're going to know which ones those are. So you can have a look and see. We're going to have that on the site. You can say, okay, this is what I'm going to get if I purchase this item. Hey, you can get an Avengers number 1 on eBay if you want to, but it's not going to have an original signed Tad Stone's piece of art. So, just saying.
Well, I hope somebody wants them. It's a lot of fun. It's.
I want them. I'm thinking about I should buy this.
I have not. As far as the little drawings that I did, I posted some on the internet and it got a great reaction. Which really got me thinking, because I don't do commissions, or at least I haven't in the past. Only recently have I done one commission for someone in this room. It's just fun getting back into those characters, some Rescue Ranger stuff, some Darkwing, and mashing it up with Marvel characters and stuff out of the comics and DC characters. I just feel like I got so much joy out of these comics that I want to just give a little extra. It doesn't make sense for me to sign a comic because I had nothing to do with it. Someday you asked about, do I have comic ideas? Yes, I do, and hope I can get to them. But for these, it's just like, wow, I grew up with this. It's such a big part of my life. And it's like, well, let me just share this. I know, I have fans of my work too, and just share a little bit of that in a way they maybe didn't expect. It would just be that little extra Blastoff Comics punch that we need.
Everybody needs that.
Exactly.
Well, that's great. I really want to thank you for coming by our store today and talking about this. Obviously, we're talking about your collection, but the things that we have, say, on YouTube and the interviews that we've done with so many artists and writers, it's great for young people to come and look at. I think there are a lot of young artists who've never heard any of these stories, who don't know anything about the old days, and there's a lot to learn from it. There they are writing and doing art in a vacuum. And the old days were all about teams of people. And it was everybody took credit because everybody was a part of it.
Right.
And that's a different way of thinking. I think maybe a lot of people would feel like we could go back to that and feel a little bit of sentiment about it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to learn from your experience, and I hope that there are a lot of people out there who would take interest in the trajectory of your career. But of course we're talking about Tad Stone's collection here. All of these books will be available on our website, blastoffcomics.com, and in our retail store in North Hollywood, California. You'll be able to go and you'll be able to see all of these books. You'll be able to see which books will have these special sketches that will be attached with them. And of course you can go and see all of this interview and all the others on our YouTube channel online. There will be a lot more, and this is just another great added attraction. I really thank you for looking and being part of this with us today. And of course, if you have any questions about these books or anything else, please email us. You can do it through the website or Blastoff at blastoffcomics.com, or heck, give us a call. We're pretty old-fashioned. 818-980-BOOK. Why not just give us a call? We'll be on the other end of the phone. I don't know that you want to speak to me, but I'll be here picking up. So anyway, thanks again, Tad, for coming by.
That was great.
Really,
it's a great
really
store.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Take his word for it.
No, this is this store is totally different from any other comic shop I've been in, because they really specialize in vintage comics. I mean, these special collections. I mean, yes, guys come in, there's an animation studio right up the street, and the guys come in on Wednesdays and pick up their comics. But the special stuff on this wall are, collections from Mark Waid, Harlan Ellison, Jim Cummings, the voice of Darkwing Duck, has his collection here. It's like, this is special stuff. And it was so neat the first time I walked in here, where comics have each comic has a little shelf of its own, and you told me to rotate these, but it's like an art gallery. And it's like, oh, cool. I've only seen, images of that, little postage stamp images on the internet. It's just really, if you're anywhere near North Hollywood, or NoHo as it's called, man, stop by. It's just a trip.
Wow, thank you so much for that. That's really wonderful.
It's not a problem. Not jumping invoice.
Oh, great. Well, thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. And please always remember, and I think Tad would agree with me, go out into the world and do well, but more important, go out into the world and do good.
Hope you enjoy our talk with animation pro Tad Stones. All 4 parts of this talk are available on YouTube and also at our website. And to check out books from the Tad Stones collection, go to blastoffcomics.com or come visit us here in our North Hollywood location. Thanks for watching.